Hi, I'm Elias, 29, and my family vacation to Greece ended with me being disowned over a wine glass and one sentence I wouldn't say. It started with ouzo and a sunset, like all family betrayals should. We were at this cliffside taverna in Santorini, the kind you see on postcards, whitewashed walls, blue domes, chairs that look antique but are probably from IKEA. The table was full: grilled octopus, lemon potatoes, tzatziki, and us, me, my dad, his girlfriend Vanessa, and my younger brother, Ben. I should mention, my mom died 6 years ago. This trip was supposed to be about remembering her. That's what Dad said when he announced the plan. We'll go back to the place we loved most as a family, he told us over dinner one night. Mom would have wanted that. Only he didn't book the same little house we used to rent when she was alive. He booked a luxury villa with a private chef. And he didn't come alone. He brought Vanessa. Vanessa is 34. I'm 29. Do the math. She has a lifestyle blog with pastel fonts and a large Instagram following that refers to her as Greece Goddess. She wore white every day like she was prepping for an eternal engagement shoot. She called my dad babe, and posted reels of him feeding her strawberries while tagging obscure Greek wineries. My brother Ben, 24, didn't seem to mind. He's always been agreeable. Go with the flow, low conflict, stomach of steel Ben. I used to envy him for it. Day 3 is when things cracked. We were at the villa, just back from a beach day. The chef had laid out a 5-course meal with wine pairings. Vanessa stood up with her glass, her hair curled like a tourism board fantasy, and said, I just want to thank Sam, my dad, for making this trip so magical. You're the love of my life. Then she looked at me. Eli, would you toast with me? I froze. I had a forkful of lamb halfway to my mouth. Everyone looked at me. My father expectant. Ben nervous. Vanessa smug as hell. I said quietly, I don't want to. Dad blinked. Sorry? I'm not toasting her, I said. This trip was supposed to be about Mom. That's when it happened. He slammed his wine glass down so hard the stem snapped. Wine splashed across the table. And he said, Then maybe you shouldn't be here at all. And just like that, my dad cut me off. As in, mid-vacation. No more shared villa. No more flights. No more family. He told me I was ungrateful. That I disrespected the woman who helped him live again. That if I couldn't show basic decency, I could find my own way home. I left the table in silence. Walked out of the villa barefoot, with nothing but my phone and my room key. No wallet. No passport. No plan. And that's how I ended up sleeping on a bench in Hawaii, staring at the stars and wondering how a toast turned into exile. The morning air in Hawaii is cruel. It smells like salt and sunscreen and freshly baked bread from the cafe I couldn't afford to sit in. I was wearing the same shirt from last night, my phone was at 12%, and I had no wallet, no passport, no place to go. At 7:13 a.m., I texted Ben. Me. Where's my stuff? Ben. Dad told the staff not to let you back in. I tried to grab your bag, but he's serious, Eli. He said you're cut off. I stared at the message for a long time. Then another buzz. Ben. Vanessa said she felt unsafe after the scene. Unsafe. Because I refused to clink glasses and smile like this wasn't the anniversary trip of a dead woman being hijacked by a blonde with a Canva subscription and a 6-month relationship timeline. I called my friend Nico. Nico's Greek-American, lives in Athens, and we met back in college. He answered on the second ring. Dude? I told him everything. The trip, the toast, the exile. Nico didn't even blink. You're in Hawaii? You idiot. That's the most expensive exile I've ever heard of. Sit tight. I'll call my cousin. 30 minutes later, a guy named Andreas pulled up in a dented Fiat and handed me a coffee and a pair of knockoff Ray-Bans. Nico says you're dramatic, he said, grinning. Let's get you to Athens. 4 hours, 3 cigarette breaks, and a lecture on Greek politics later. I was in a spare room in Andreas's apartment, staring at a framed poster of Beyoncé in a toga and trying to remember how to breathe. Ben texted again that night. Ben. Dad changed your flight. Said you're not welcome on the return. Me. Cool. Guess I'll swim. Ben. This got so messy. He's really mad. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My dad was mad because I didn't perform gratitude on demand. Because I refused to treat his girlfriend like she belonged in the center of a story that was never hers. It had always been like that, honestly. When Mom died, Dad grieved in expensive ways. First it was cars. Then it was a spontaneous yoga retreat in Bali. Then he started dating people who looked like ad campaigns and talked in curated captions. I was 23, in grad school, and trying to hold the pieces of our family together while he shopped for people who never met Mom but called her an energy. The Greece trip was supposed to be a return. A full circle. A way to feel her again in the air, in the food, in the quiet. But Dad made it a debut for Vanessa. And when I wouldn't raise a glass, I became the problem. Andreas cooked pasta that night. We sat on his roof and passed a single bottle of wine back and forth. He didn't ask questions. Just handed me a fork and said, "Family makes you tired, huh?" I laughed harder than I had in months. Then I cried. Because yeah, they do. 3 days after I was exiled from my own family vacation, I walked into the U.S. Embassy in Athens wearing borrowed sneakers and carrying a backpack that used to hold Andreas's DJ equipment. The security guard looked at me like I was a frat boy who'd lost his wallet on a bender. I didn't blame him. "I need an emergency passport," I said. "My dad threw me out of our vacation villa. I have no ID, no money, and my flight was cancelled without my consent." He blinked slowly. "Was this a work trip?" "No," I said. "It was supposed to be a memorial." The next 4 hours were a Kafkaesque montage of forms, long sighs, photocopies, and the desperate scramble to prove I wasn't an international drifter. Thank God for digital banking. I pulled up a photo of my driver's license, university ID, and a very flattering headshot from my old staff directory. I think what finally convinced them was the copy of my mom's obituary linked on a local news site. By 4 p.m., I had a new passport and a flight booked through my own savings. But here's where things shifted. While waiting for my boarding pass, I got a call from an unknown number. Elijah? It was my father's sister, Aunt Melinda. We hadn't spoken in over a year. She was always considered the emotional one in our family, which really just meant she didn't bottle everything up in sarcasm and fine print. "Elijah, I just got off the phone with your father," she said. "He told me what happened in Greece. Or his version. Which was that you embarrassed him, disrespected Vanessa, and stormed out like a child. Sounds on brand." There was a pause. "Is it true you were honoring your mother?" I swallowed hard. I thought we all were. Guess that was naive. Melinda sighed, a long, frustrated sound. She would be horrified, you know. Not just at him, but at all of it. The wine, the girlfriend, the idea that gratitude can be demanded like it's a birthday card. That hit hard. She loved that place. I whispered. "I know," she said gently. "And I know you did too. So here's what we're going to do. You're coming to me." "What?" "I'm in Paris for the month. Teaching a summer intensive. You'll come stay with me. We'll eat bread, drink real wine, and actually talk about your mother instead of pretending she's a footnote in someone else's love story." I didn't say yes right away. But she booked the train ticket herself. I arrived in Paris with a still damp passport, one pair of pants, and a heart so tight I didn't realize it had stopped beating normally. Melinda met me at Gare de Lyon with a tote bag that said, "Feminists eat croissants," and hugged me like I hadn't been forgotten at the table. That night, we lit a candle for my mom. We ate pasta and looked through old photo albums. And I said out loud, for the first time in 6 years, "I miss her so much it physically hurts." Melinda didn't offer solutions. She just poured more wine and said, "Good. That means you loved her, right?" I fell asleep that night on a pull-out couch in a borrowed t-shirt, feeling like maybe I wasn't broken, just grieving in a house where no one knew how to handle it. My father cut me off. My aunt welcomed me in. That was the real turning point. Not the fight. Not the toast. But the choice to mourn somewhere I was actually allowed to. In Paris, grief felt different. It moved slower, like honey on warm bread. Aunt Melinda's apartment was this tiny 5th-floor walk-up near the 11th arrondissement, with slanted ceilings, book piles doubling as furniture, and a stubborn radiator that hissed like an old cat. It was nothing like the villa in Santorini, and it felt more like home in the first hour than that entire vacation ever had. She had this rule. No fake joy in the mornings. Which meant coffee in silence, real croissants, and no questions until at least 10 a.m. It was oddly therapeutic. I spent most of my first few days just walking. Paris is a city that doesn't ask you to perform. You can just be sad, silent, unshaven, wearing the same jeans for 4 days straight, and no one blinks. Melinda taught a seminar at a liberal arts institute just outside the city, and one day she invited me to sit in on her lecture, The Myth of the Perfect Griever. I almost laughed at the title. But something she said stuck with me. Grief isn't just mourning the person. It's mourning the version of yourself you were when they were alive. The person you don't get to be anymore. I sat in the back, listening like a student and a subject at the same time. She was right. I hadn't just lost my mom. I'd lost the version of my father that existed when she did. The one who made pancakes every Sunday. The one who danced like a complete fool at my high school graduation. The one who never once used the phrase, "Vanessa is my second chance." That man disappeared the day Mom died. And in his place grew a man who used Instagram captions like emotional shields and expected applause for showing up. The next day, Vanessa posted a reel. Her lounging by the pool in Santorini, some ethereal piano music behind it, the caption. Healing is choosing joy over old wounds. I didn't comment. But I did open a group text with Dad and Ben. I hadn't touched it since the blow-up. Me. Glad the vacation's going well. I'm safe. Staying with Aunt Melinda. Thanks for not checking. Read receipts. Nothing else. Ben eventually replied. Ben. I wanted to. He told me not to reach out. Me. You could have ignored that. Ben. I didn't want to make it worse. Me. Newsflash, you already did. He didn't respond. And I didn't need him to. Because something else had started to bloom in Paris. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But clarity. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't ungrateful. I was the only one who remembered what this trip was supposed to be. I was the only one willing to stand in the discomfort of that memory instead of drowning it in white wine and curated smiles. Melinda saw it too. One evening, she handed me an envelope. Inside was a photo of Mom in Greece, maybe 25, in a sundress, arms wide open on that same Santorini cliff. She hated wine, Melinda said. Used to dump it in the bushes when your dad wasn't looking. I laughed real, from the gut. She would have done the same thing you did, Melinda added. She would have walked out. That photo now lives in my wallet. Next to my passport. Like proof. I didn't walk out on my family. I walked toward the only part of it that remembered who we really were. By week 2 in Paris, I'd stopped checking Vanessa's posts altogether. I muted both her and my dad. A small act, but weirdly powerful. Like deleting a toxic app from your life and realizing your battery lasts longer. Aunt Melinda encouraged me to write. Not for closure, she said. Just for air. So I sat at cafes and tapped away on my phone, compiling fragments memories of Mom in Greece, of my childhood, of the way my dad used to look at her like she hung the moon. I wrote it like a letter I'd never send. Or maybe one I would. Then, out of nowhere, I got a DM from my cousin Riley. We hadn't spoken in over a year. She lived in Portland, ran a small gallery, and had always been the family's accidental truth teller. Her message said, Hey, I saw Vanessa's post about you causing a scene. Just wanted you to know I don't buy it. Call me if you want. I called her. We talked for 3 hours. Turns out, my dad had been spinning the narrative back home telling extended family that I'd sabotaged the trip. Out of jealousy, that I refused to accept that he'd moved on. Vanessa even claimed I'd been drinking heavily and made her feel threatened. I nearly dropped my phone. Threatened? I barked into the Paris night. I didn't even raise my voice. Riley snorted. She tagged a winery in the same post. Super credible. I felt sick. Like I was being digitally erased and replaced by a version of myself I didn't recognize. The ungrateful son. The problem child. The one who ruined Greece. Riley offered something I didn't expect. I have all the old videos, she said. From our last Greece trip. When your mom was still alive. You guys made that goofy toast at the taverna, remember? You stood on a chair and yelled Opa so loud you scared a cat off the roof. I did remember. And I remembered Mom's laugh, pure, full, unfiltered. It echoed in my chest like a heartbeat I'd been missing. Riley emailed the video. I watched it that night, in Melinda's apartment, curled up under a scratchy wool blanket, tears streaking down my face before I could even hit play. There she was. My mother. Holding a glass of orange soda because she hated wine, throwing her head back with laughter as I botched my Greek, and my dad that version of him, looking at us both like he couldn't believe he got this lucky. He had no idea it would be the last time. I didn't sleep that night. Not from pain. From purpose. I decided to write back. To my father. I opened the group chat and typed. I saw Vanessa said she felt threatened by me. Just so we're clear, I refused to toast your girlfriend, not start a war. The trip was meant to honor Mom, and you turned it into a launch party for someone she never even met. I didn't ruin Greece. I remembered it. I hit send. And this time, I didn't care if they replied. Because I was no longer waiting to be welcomed back. I'd already found my way forward. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. Not a message. A missed call. From my dad. The last time we spoke, he told me to find my own way home. Now, after a silence long enough to become a strategy, he wanted to talk. I didn't answer. Instead, I stared at the screen while Melinda plated grilled peaches and read a novel called We Are All Emotionally Complicated. Please tip accordingly. When she noticed the tension on my face, she said, You don't have to pick up just because someone finally remembers how to dial a number. I smiled weakly. I know. I keep thinking he's going to be the version I miss. He won't be, she said, slicing a peach. He's the version he chose. And that landed hard. I listened to the voicemail later, with headphones in, like it would hurt less that way. Elias, listen. I've had some time to think. Maybe things got heated. Maybe you misunderstood the intention of the toast. Vanessa feels like she's been under attack, and that's not fair. She's been nothing but kind to you boys. I need you to apologize. And if you can do that, maybe we can move forward. That word, maybe, hit like a backhand. Maybe we can move forward, if I apologize? For what? Having a memory. For not liking the woman who edited my mother out of her own damn trip. I played the voicemail 3 times. Then I sent it to Riley. Her reply was simple. That's not an olive branch. That's a guilt leash. She was right. And I wasn't about to loop it around my neck. That night, I did something I'd been avoiding. I watched all the old Grease videos Riley sent me. There were 7. Each one a little slice of before, Mom in a floppy hat pretending to be a tour guide. Me and Ben racing to the ocean with towels as capes. My dad laughing. Not performing. Just being. I remembered the version of us that felt real. That didn't need to toast anything to prove we loved each other. I opened my notes app and wrote something I wasn't sure I'd send. A letter. To him. But really to me. Dad, you once told me I got my stubbornness from Mom. You said it like it was a flaw. But maybe it was her strength. Maybe it's what let her hold our family together while you floated through grief like it was a vacation you never came back from. I didn't toast Vanessa because I couldn't lie with a smile. I won't apologize for that. You keep choosing easy love. Polished love. Love that doesn't challenge you. But I chose the hard kind. The honest kind. The kind Mom taught us. And until you're ready for that, I'm staying right here with the version of her that still lives in me. I didn't send it. Not yet. But writing it was enough. Later that week, Melinda and I visited a quiet garden on the outskirts of the city. No tourists. Just locals and long shadows. She brought a photo of Mom. We sat under a tree and talked about her favorite books, her hatred of olives, the way she used to hum ABBA songs when she cleaned. It was the first time I cried and felt better afterward. That night, my brother texted. Ben. He's mad you're not responding. Vanessa said you're being dramatic. Me. She should start a podcast. She loves her own voice. Ben. You're not going to talk to him? Me. Not until he remembers who this trip was actually for. Ben didn't push. Maybe he was starting to get it. Or maybe he finally felt the heat from the line he refused to step across. And me? I booked another week in Paris. Because grief takes time. And I was finally giving it some. Ben showed up in Paris unannounced. I was at a sidewalk cafe near the canal, sipping espresso like I was in a movie about someone slightly more composed than me, when he walked up wearing that guilty little brother expression he's perfected since we were kids. Before you say anything, he started. I brought baklava. It was a terrible peace offering, mostly because it was crushed inside a paper bag, but I took it anyway. We sat there quietly for a moment, chewing through flaky silence. I didn't know it would go like that, he finally said. Dad said it was just going to be a trip. A chance to reset? Without Mom? I asked. Without even saying her name? Ben rubbed his eyes. He can't talk about her, Eli. He hasn't in years. I think if he does, he thinks he'll disappear too. That was the closest thing to insight I'd heard from my brother in a long time. I didn't interrupt. He went on. I didn't say anything at the villa because I thought you'd get over it. That maybe you were making a big deal out of nothing. But then Vanessa said you ruined the mood and I realized she wasn't even pretending anymore. She thinks she replaced her. She didn't, I said. Ben nodded. I know. But Dad let her think that. And I let him. That landed heavy. For a moment, I saw us both two boys who grew up in the house our mom held together, trying to survive the version of our dad who crumbled after she left. She didn't just die, Ben. She was erased. He looked at me, and I could tell he'd finally watched the video Riley sent. He'd finally remembered what the toast used to mean. Do you want me to talk to him? He asked. No, I said. I want you to talk to him. Not as my messenger. As her son. That hit. He swallowed, hard. Okay. We sat there until the sun ducked behind the buildings and the espresso turned bitter in my cup. Before he left, he handed me a tiny photo. It was one of Mom at our old kitchen table, birthday candles lit, both of us leaning in from either side to blow them out. She kept that on her dresser, he said. I tucked it into my wallet. Right behind the one from Greece. After Ben left, I called Melinda. He came, I said. I knew he would, she replied. Your brother's soft, not spineless. That night, I finally slept through the night. No dreams. Just the steady rhythm of something loosening. Maybe I didn't need my father to toast to the past. Maybe I just needed someone else who remembered it was real. My father didn't call. He didn't text. But 3 days after Ben flew home, a manila envelope arrived at Melinda's apartment with a Greek return address and my name scrawled in all caps. Inside was a photo. No note. No explanation. Just a printed, slightly overexposed picture of my mom standing barefoot on a rock in Santorini, holding her sandals in one hand, the other hand midair like she was dancing. I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't a memory I remembered. Probably something my dad took on one of those quiet walks they used to take when Ben and I were kids, arguing over ice cream flavors. Melinda looked over my shoulder. That's him saying he remembers, she said. Then he should have said it with words, I muttered. Still, I didn't throw it away. I carried it with me when I flew back to the States a week later. Not to see him. Not yet. But because grief isn't about who deserves the memories, it's about who needs them. I got a job offer in Chicago consulting for a firm that worked with international nonprofits. I took it. Moved into a tiny apartment with loud pipes and one window, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I wasn't chasing someone else's definition of okay. Vanessa posted a story a few weeks later. Her and my dad on some rooftop bar. Same smiles, same fake sunsets. I muted her again. I'd unmuted out of curiosity, but it had only made me tired. Ben kept in touch. More than ever, actually. Weekly calls. Jokes. Even a photo from the old photo album we thought was lost, Mom holding us both in one arm each, looking like a magician and a sleep-deprived goddess at the same time. And then, one quiet Thursday, my father emailed me. Subject Santorini. Body. Elijah. I was wrong. About the toast. About Vanessa. About thinking I could rewrite something sacred and ask you to smile while I did it. You reminded me of her. That's what I couldn't say at the time. You look at things the way she did head on, no pretending. It scared me. I've spent so long trying to avoid grief, I didn't notice it had turned me into someone who hurts people trying to keep her alive. You didn't ruin Greece. I did. I hope someday we can talk. Dad. I didn't cry. I didn't run back. But I did exhale, like I'd been holding my breath for months. I didn't reply. Not yet. That kind of apology, that late, needs to sit a while. But I printed it. Folded it up, and placed it in the same wallet pocket as the Santorini photo. Right behind the one of the three of us at the kitchen table. This wasn't closure. This wasn't a reunion. This was something quieter. A recognition. Months passed. I built a new rhythm. Chicago snow, corner store groceries, walks by the lake. Ben visited once. We watched an old movie Mom loved, and he cried harder than I'd ever seen. I didn't tease him for it. I just handed him the tissue box. One night I sat on my fire escape with a drink and that photo of her in my lap. And I said out loud, I didn't raise the glass. But I never stopped honoring you. That was my toast. Not the kind you do for show. Not for the camera. But the kind that says, I remember. I loved you. And I won't let anyone edit you out. That's what family means to me now. Not blood. Not vacation homes. Not who smiles widest at dinner. But who protects the truth when it's inconvenient. Who walks out instead of staying silent. Who remembers. Always.